Using stunning veneers like this Sapele can really raise up your work and make it a little bit cheaper than buying these solid. Not to mention stave off dreaded wood movement. But they're not without their issues. First of all, if the veneer's not wide enough to cover the substrate that you're going to be putting it on top of, well, this brings up the first issue, and that's jointing it. Because generally speaking, veneer's not going to come with two perfectly straight edges to joint. In fact, probably far from it. And there's many different ways of getting this done. Let me show you how bad it is to start with. So here's the seam. I've locked it together as tight as I can, and still, if we run through it, you're gonna see how bad it is. There's at least 1 millimeter of gap right there in the middle. First thing I'm gonna do is fold them onto each other. And don't worry, I've marked the joint so I can get my alignment right afterwards. And then I've cut 2 pieces of ply off a bigger sheet. And I've kept the factory edge marked because that's going to be straighter than any edge I've put on it with the table saw. I'm going to put one below and I'm going to put one above. Then I'm going to clamp them together, leaving the tiniest slither of the edge that I want to joint sticking out. And the trick here is to have the least amount sticking out, but ensuring that the entire length you've got both veneers sticking out, because you don't want to do all this again because there's a tiny bit not protruding. And you don't want to end up taking off 10-15 mil from each of these because, well, you're going to end up with a much smaller piece. And then pop one more board under this and then clamp everything down either to itself or to the workbench so nothing moves. And what you've made is possibly the world's biggest shooting board. Grab your best hand plane, whatever you'd use on a shooting board. Make sure it's not taking too heavy a shaving, and then you want to shave the veneer back to the piece of wood, and that should give you a good seam. Let's see. Make sure when you're shooting your veneer that you can go with the grain where possible to avoid any tear out, because that will ruin the line. Now inevitably one of the boards will be a fraction of a millimeter out of line with the other, so find out which one you get flush with first. Mine's the bottom one, so I'm just running my fingers up. I can feel no gaps where the veneer is slightly bigger, and with the hand plane dialed right back, if I find any, I'm just taking some very thin passes until they've gone. And then hopefully, when you open it back out, you should have a perfectly jointed line. For an amateur, I'll take it. That is 10 times better than it was before. If you've got smaller pieces, it's much easier, but for bigger pieces, it's the only way I know. Next time you're looking at putting the wow factor into a project and you don't want to break the bank, consider veneer. It's not as intimidating as it first seems. Follow along if you want some more beginner woodworking tips just like this.